Hi there, today, we're diving into the life of one of the most famous figures in ancient history, Alexander the Great. This guy's legacy is off the charts, rivaling even the most revered prophets and demigods. But what exactly made Alexander so great? Why does his name still ring through the ages? Well, buckle up, because we're about to find out. The man behind the myth. First, let's meet the man himself. Born in 356 BCE, Alexander was the son of King Philip II of Macedon. He had some pretty impressive tutors growing up, including the one and only Aristotle. Talk about a top-notch education. When his father was assassinated in 336 BCE, Alexander took the reins at the ripe old age of 20. And boy, did he hit the ground running. With a fire in his belly and a hunger for glory, Alexander set out to make his mark on the world. Little did he know that his name would echo through the centuries, inspiring generations of conquerors, dreamers, and storytellers. Conquering the world. Alexander's first order of business? Crushing rebellions in Greece. He made an example of the city of Thebes, burning it to the ground. But that was just the beginning. Next up, the mighty Persian Empire. Alexander led his army through a series of epic battles, like the Granicus, Issus, and Gaugamela. He even founded the famous city of Alexandria in Egypt along the way. The Persian king, Darius III, tried to outrun Alexander, but he was betrayed and killed by his own men. Alexander marched into the Persian capital of Persepolis and torched it. He then set up shop in Babylon and continued to put down revolts left and right. This guy just couldn't be stopped. Alexander decided to take on India next. He fought a massive battle at the Hydaspes River against King Porus. But after a decade of non-stop campaigning, his soldiers were like, enough already. They refused to go any further at the Hyphasis River. Alexander was pretty ticked off, but he had to call it quits and head back to Babylon. You see, Alexander wasn't just a military mastermind. He was a force of nature, a man possessed by an insatiable thirst for conquest. He dreamed of reaching the ends of the earth, of surpassing the legends of old. And for a brief, shining moment, it seemed like nothing could stand in his way. The God King. So, how did Alexander pull off all these incredible feats? Well, some folks started to think he must be divine. Even his own mother, Olympias, claimed that Zeus was his real dad. Imagine that parent-teacher conference. There's a famous story about Alexander visiting the oracle of Ammonius in Egypt. Supposedly, birds guided him through the desert, and rain poured down in the middle of nowhere. When he reached the oracle, they hailed him as the son of Zeus Ammonius. Convenient, right? Alexander was all about promoting his own godly status. He put symbols of his divine heritage on his coins and linked himself to legendary heroes like Heracles and Achilles. And if anyone dared to question his divinity? Well, let's just say they didn't stick around for long. But here's the thing, Alexander's claim to divinity wasn't just a power play. It was a reflection of the sheer magnitude of his achievements. In a world where gods and mortals often mingled, where the lines between myth and reality were blurred, Alexander's larger-than-life persona seemed to transcend the bounds of human possibility. He wasn't just a king, he was a living legend, a demigod walking among men. And that aura of invincibility only added to his mystique, fueling the fires of his ambition and the imaginations of those who followed in his wake. The Untimely End. By 323 BCE, Alexander was gearing up for even more conquests. But fate had other plans. In June of that year, he fell ill and died just a few days later. Theories about the cause of his death are all over the map, from poison to malaria to a rare cancer. We may never know for sure. The empire was thrown into chaos without a clear successor. A bloody civil war broke out, and eventually, the empire splintered into separate kingdoms. But even in death, Alexander's legacy was a hot commodity. His former generals fought over who could claim to be his true heir. They minted coins with his face, married his sisters, and spun tales of their supposed connections to the great conqueror. It's a testament to Alexander's impact that even after his untimely demise, his shadow loomed large over the ancient world. His life may have been cut short, but his legend only grew with each passing year. The boy king who had set out to conquer the known world had become an immortal figure, a yardstick against which all future rulers would be measured. The historian's take. None of the historians who wrote about Alexander during his lifetime have survived. We only know bits and pieces from later writers who used them as sources. And let me tell you, the myth-making was in full swing. One story that made the rounds was about Alexander being visited by Thalestris, the queen of the Amazons, who wanted to have his baby. Several historians repeated this tall tale, but it was totally bogus. Even Alexander's pal Ptolemy called it out as fake news. But the historian who really put Alexander on a pedestal? That would be Plutarch. This guy was a master storyteller. He wrote biographies of famous Greeks and Romans, and his life of Alexander is a gem. Plutarch wasn't interested in boring battle details. Nope, he wanted to get inside Alexander's head, to figure out what made him tick. Plutarch's writing is packed with juicy anecdotes and life lessons. He's the one who gave us the famous stories of Alexander taming the wild horse Bucephalus and cutting the Gordian knot. Sure, they might be fictional, but they're way more memorable than any dry historical facts. You see, Plutarch understood something crucial about the nature of history. It's not just a record of events, but a tapestry of stories, woven together to create meaning and purpose. And in Alexander, he found the perfect subject, a man whose life was so extraordinary, so full of drama and wonder, that it practically begged to be mythologized. Through Plutarch's pen, Alexander became more than just a historical figure. He became a symbol of human potential, a shining example of what one person could achieve through sheer force of will. And that, in the end, is perhaps the greatest legacy of all. The real Alexander. So, was Alexander really all that great? Well, he certainly had his flaws. His empire crumbled pretty quickly after his death, and he could be a real hothead. He burned cities, destroyed cultures, and was probably guilty of some seriously messed up stuff. But trying to separate the man from the myth at this point? Good luck with that. The thing is, Alexander has become more than just a historical figure. He's a symbol, a cautionary tale, a source of inspiration. His story has been retold and reimagined countless times, each version reflecting the values and biases of the storyteller. In a way, the real Alexander is beside the point. What matters is the idea of Alexander, the dream of greatness, the allure of the impossible, the seductive power of a life lived without limits. Whether we see him as a hero or a villain, a visionary or a tyrant, there's no denying the impact he's had on our collective imagination. And isn't that, in the end, what makes a legend? Not the cold, hard facts of history, but the way a story takes on a life of its own, shaping our hopes, our fears, and our deepest desires. Alexander may have lived and died over 2,000 years ago, but his myth endures, as potent and provocative as ever. Thank you for joining us today. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful content.